So guys, we have made a number of Glassway Nightfall guides, and a lot of those guides really centered around us taking advantage of Shadebinder, rocking Osmiomancy gloves, and just throwing out stasis turrets one after another. That was originally what I was using earlier today, but then, after going through all the other Nightfalls on my Titan, and playing with Heart of Inmost Light and our Lord of Thunder build, and even making some modifications to my Lord of Thunder build, I realized that actually, my Titan build is still very, very good, even in Glassway, despite us not having arc burn. Today, guys, we're gonna go over how to do this Grandmaster in the most effective way possible. How to get that sub 20-minute run. We actually got it down to 17 minutes. We actually feel like we can get it down even further. I do think it's possible to get sub 15-minute runs on Glassway, which is an incredible time. And the reason why you want to do Glassway this week is number one, double loot. Number two, D.F.A is dropping. And I know it may not be your favorite hand cannon in the game, but in comparison to many other weapons within its same slot, in that kinetic slot, D.F.A is one of the better hand cannons. It's got a poor magazine size, but stat-wise, and considering you can get the Adept version of it, it actually is a really good hand cannon. Now, we're not going to be re-reviewing D.F.A. We've already reviewed D.F.A. once, but with that being said, sub 15-minute runs is what we're hoping to achieve here at Glassway, and for double loot, that's actually really good. This week, though, modifiers include Arachno, where those fallen vandals will spawn a web mine at their feet. Champions are Overload and Barrier. Radar is also disabled. A number of Grandmaster modifiers. You'll be dealing with Arc, Solar, and Void shields, so essentially tasting the rainbow, and acute void burn, which is 25% void damage dealt and 50% void damage received. Now that 50% void damage received is pretty tough. Whether it's void damage from the boss, wyverns, overloads, there are many things throughout this Nightfall that will poop on you and poop on you fast with that increase in void damage, which is why we suggest, no matter what, rocking max resilience. Now I'm gonna go over my build real quick before we get into the Nightfall. This is my Lord of Thunder build, but specifically for Glassway itself, and really for all the other GMs, I made some modifications, and I'll have an updated dim link down below. But we're taking combinations like Touch of Thunder with Storm Grenades, amplifying it with Spark of Magnitude, Spark of Shock, where our Arc Grenades actually jolt targets. We even have Spark of Resistance, which actually will keep you alive when you're surrounded by combatants, which happens more often than you think, and Spark of Amplitude, which creates Orbs of Power. And the other aspect that I'm rocking is, of course, Knockout. Now, I made some modifications to the melee here. Originally, I was rocking Seismic Strike because I was taking advantage of the blinding abilities inside of PvE. However, pushing up close to your enemies, at least to that degree, was just a little too dangerous, which is why we actually transferred over to Thunderclap. And again, with Thunderclap, you don't have to hold down the melee and lock yourself in that animation the entire time. You can literally just tap it once. The purpose here is not to get maximum damage from this melee. The purpose here is essentially just to proc Heart of Inmost Light at full capacity as much as you can. This exotic is by far the best Titan exotic in the game right now, and I'm actually concerned it's gonna get a nerf. Please, Bungie, don't do it. But it comes with Overflowing Light, where when you use an ability, grenade, melee, or barricade, it empowers the other two abilities, and you can actually chain these one after another. The idea here is to rock max resilience, get your class ability down as low as you can, use your thruster class ability, as that has a shorter cooldown, as often as you can, and this of course amplifies your melee and your grenade. And when you use these other abilities, it amplifies the others. And you can see where the chaining capabilities here get crazy. Thruster, melee, increase the damage with storm grenades. And by the way, even inside of GMs, these storm grenades do a ton of damage. With combinations like Spark of Magnitude, Touch of Thunder, Spark of Shock, and Heart of Inmost Light, you could pretty much one-shot champions with a single storm grenade. And if you're combining with certain mods like Surge Detonators, you can be stunning overload champions at the same time. And Lightning Strikes Twice, which states that after you're throwing an arc grenade, you gain increased grenade recharge for a short time. And Arc Final Blows extends the duration of this benefit. To top things off, you can also combine this with Grenade Kickstart, which gives you a certain percentage of your grenade back every single time you throw a grenade. Needless to say, guys, this was a Nightfall that I originally used to have to run 3 Warlocks with Shadebinder to lock that boss room down with. And what I found was that our Arc 3.0 Titans, our Lord of Thunder Titans, had enough damage to secure this room for us. Now again, check out the dim link because we do have a lot of things going on here. We're rocking Element and Ordnance mods, Seeking Wells, Bountiful Wells. There's a lot happening here that's contributing to ability regeneration on top of what you already see cooked into the subclass itself. Now with that being said, Les was actually still rocking a Stacy build. We'll have a link to that down below. DeFizzle was rocking Omnioculus and Invis Hunter, which actually came in clutch. And I will say this, you may want to have someone rocking Invis, even if you're not skipping entire areas, just because it helps. You never know when you're going to be in a sticky situation where you're going to have to go Invis to just dip out or to just safely get a rest. Now let's start with this Nightfall, guys. Opening up into this cavern area, you'll be met with an Overload champion. A number of Shanks are going to be coming at at you. You probably notice right off the bat, Les is actually rocking Divinity, which really helps. And I do suggest having someone on your team rocking Divinity. At least one person rocking Divinity and one person rocking Witherhoard. We're going to get to that in just a moment. But upon dealing with those ads and that champ, you'll move to the first area where you'll see a fallen barrier in front of you. You'll have an overload champion and a barrier champion in this room. As you can see here, storm grenades are dealing with everything very easily. As again, on the Titan class, these storm grenades track. But upon killing both of these champions and the ads, you push on through and you'll be met with another fallen barrier, as well as a warrior's enforcer, and of course, champions. There's also some snipers there on the far right, so be careful. And the thing about this mini boss right here, he does spawn stasis crystals, so be very careful getting too close to them, or they will kill you when they explode. But as you begin to kill all these ads, more ads will spawn in. You'll have a barrier champion here as well. But again, like I said, this Lord of Thunder build makes quick work of literally everything. Now you'll push through this cavern once more to be met with another fallen barrier, a number of champions, as well as some ads, and a technocrat's assistant. Essentially, another mini boss. Divinity again is fantastic here. I know they like to juke a bunch, so it does make easy work to just clean them up with your linears. Considering we do have Void Burn for this Nightfall, and it's the only Nightfall with Void Burn, I'm of course taking advantage of Tapan, a wonderful exotic that you can of course craft. But upon dealing with these guys, you'll then push all the way through this cave system, and you're actually going to be in this open area. You have some ads that spawn on the left and on the right. Now, sometimes the ads do take a second to spawn in, so be very careful how far you push up, as you'll suddenly find yourself surrounded. You also have an overload champion that's down below. Deal with that guy. Sometimes he's up top. It just depends on where he's moving. And then you'll push on through and you'll have another overload champion and a number of vandals. And upon killing this overload champion, you'll have two other vandals up top that can snipe you very quickly. Now, moving into the next area, this area is actually a pretty time-consuming area because you have to capture this plate. And while you're capturing this plate, a number of shanks are coming down. And this is where you're going to want to have a weapon that does solar damage, because you're going to have heavy shanks with solar shields. And I'm actually rocking this bow right here, which is a fantastic bow. This strident whistle with incandescence and ensemble. I know it's not like the godliest roll, but it was actually doing really good. Like, I was surprised how often ensemble was actually proccing there. You just have to be within 15 meters of one ally, not even two. And you get 30 handling and 40 reload speed. That in combination with my masterwork, and of course this can deal with overload champions. And of course, incandescent is so dang good. Like, I'm not even speccing for solar 3.0 here. And you see how good incandescent is just using it by itself. Its ability to just spread scorch, do AoE damage. This helps tremendously. Now, I do not suggest staying on this plate and dying for it. There's a number of things that actually spawn in here, which can easily overwhelm you and your teammates. Maybe if you had a well, you could sit there, but even with the well in the past, guys, we still didn't sit there. You can get shredded even in your well. So no matter what, you're gonna have to be moving. But upon capturing this plate, you have an overload champion that will spawn down below in that Vex Milk, a number of dregs. You'll push up, you'll have some vandals over here, a resilient heavy shank with a solar shield, as well as a barrier champion. Again, throughout this entire process, guys, just throw grenades, man. Every chance you get, throw a grenade. Pop that class ability, get a melee off if you can. If you can't, don't worry about it. Just keep throwing grenades. Now, upon dealing with all these guys and the two vandals at the end, you'll now be in the boss room. Upon entering the boss room, you have some ad spawning and an overload champion there at the end. If you got things like special finisher, this is a perfect opportunity to get that off. And now begins the boss phase itself. Now, when you look at the bottom left, you'll see right there where it says things like Transcendent Hydra arrives and Belmont Transcendent Mine also arrives. Essentially, guys, there's going to be a big Hydra and a little mini Hydra that goes up the middle. But what we like to do is go to the left side here and immediately deal with one of these champions. And it's going to cycle. Right now, it's champions. And the next round, it'll be wyverns. And then it'll go back to champions. The reason why you want to deal with this champion and those wyverns that actually spawn right here, wave after wave, is that you can eliminate at least one of these. And this is normally the one that will actually go on the flank when you're prioritizing middle. You want to at least get rid of the threat on one side so that mid and right side are the only things you're truly concerned about. Now, that's not to say that after dealing with this champion, that another champion won't go around the left side. So be conscious of that. You have two champions that spawn right off the bat. Sometimes he goes up the middle. Sometimes he'll go on a long flank to the right. And maybe he might even loop around to the left. But for the most part, if you kill the one on the left, the other one will be going up the middle. Now, when this Hydra actually goes away, this Transcendent Hydra, or leading up to that, two more overload champions will appear. Now, throughout this process, I'm just throwing grenades right down the middle. Les is rocking Divinity, so he's getting stuns off. He's also rocking Shadebinder, although I will say sometimes that is slightly counterproductive, as stunning champions and then freezing them can actually cause them to unstun. I know, Bungie, come on, when are we gonna fix this? Deal with these champions though. Every now and then you'll have another overload champion that won't come up the middle. He'll literally be hiding underneath the boss's legs, so you may have to peek out and deal with that guy. But again, be careful. It's acute void burn, meaning old Belmont here will crap all over you very quickly. Now, when we actually look at the Transcendent Mine, the big guy here, it's really hard to get damage on him without getting one shot, which is where Witherhoard comes in, guys. I literally just pop a Witherhoard shot onto his shield. I don't even peek out far enough to even expose myself, and Witherhoard will do damage over time. And you just sit there and just watch the numbers. I know it's kind of boring, but just watch the numbers, and as soon as the numbers quit ticking, hit him with another Witherhoard shot. Now, if you want to increase the damage here, if you have a teammate that has Sundering Glare, or if you happen to be rocking Sundering Glare, you can of course proc that debuff. And Les was actually going to the far right, and he would actually proc Sundering Glare on Belmont, and this would of course increase my damage from Withering Horde, speeding up the DPS here. Now, when Belmont actually takes the Void, similar to how the Mini Hydra did earlier, this is when the Wyverns will spawn. Now, this is where Divinity is actually the most beneficial. You thought it was the most beneficial against Overload champions. It's actually Wyverns, because Wyverns, getting them to expose or crit spot is actually really annoying, but if you just proc them with Divinity, boom, you've got a crit spot, and you can immediately deal with the one there on the left. Now, this is where things kind of get chaotic, because up the middle, you're gonna have the Mini Hydra that actually comes in there. You're gonna have a Wyvern also right there in the middle, and a number of barrier champions. And when I say a number, like 4 barrier champions through here. Deal with those barrier champions and those Wyverns, and I know it's chaotic, and this is where Shadebinder is beneficial, as it does lock everything down, but again, it does cause problems with barrier champions and other champions as it unstuns them. But deal with these guys, and again, it's amazing how much damage our Storm Grenade was doing to all of them. But upon dealing with them, you'll then retreat inside, go back to the left side, and now Overload champions will spawn. And just like what we did earlier with the first wave, you want to kill that Overload champion right off the bat. Kill that guy, and then funnel everything to the middle. You have an Overload champion that'll be chilling out here, and the boss that's just floating around. And again, don't go too crazy with the damage on the boss, because you don't want to skip certain phases and have too many ads that are spawning on you. But every now and then, just pop a Witherhoard shot on him. Just hit the shield, guys. He'll just keep doing damage over time. And then when you get him to about half health, more Vex reinforcements will spawn in, which will include, of course, 2 more Overload champions. Now, Belmont will eventually take to the Void yet again, and this time, you guessed it, more Wyverns. Deal with the one on the left, and then proceed to push back into mid and start locking everything down. The good thing about this part is that you can now immediately crap all over that Hydra and everything else there in middle, but be careful, because those Wyverns, they like to hang back. They like to bait you. You think you're safe, you start to push up, and next thing you know it, you're getting blasted by that acute Void burn. And there are multiple times throughout this, as more Wyverns are pouring in, that your team can get killed very, very fast. Honestly, this is where you want to have a lot of your supers, as this can deal with those guys very quickly. Even if you pop a Shadebinder super, you can just lock them in place and freeze them. But for me, just actually using my Code of the Missile was really, really beneficial in dealing at least with one of these Wyverns, and it's worth using it. It's not like you're going to use that super for the boss. Use it to take out these guys. Now, after dealing with those Wyverns, you'll notice a number of barrier hobgoblins out here. Now, in the past, we used to be able to just go and throw a single turret out there, do damage to them, and still get platinum. My experience, at least when we were running Nightfalls, is that it appears that that has been patched. Now, we can test it some more, but the way the game works is that when you go and kill the boss, as long as you did damage to those champions out there, when the boss dies and they despawn, those champions, that is, they will count as kills, and you will still get platinum. And of course, it will save you time, because you won't have to worry about getting kills on them. My experience, though, was that we got gold in our very first run, and I could have swore we damaged all the champions. Needless to say, we didn't want to take any more chances, so obviously, we would just kill all the champions out there, which does extend the time a little more. So even though back in the day, we may have gotten a slightly faster speed than what we achieved here at 17 minutes and 33 seconds, it's still impressive that we got this in 17:33, and we killed every single champion manually. Now, again, I still believe we can get this to sub 15 minutes, but the point is, sub 20-minute runs are achievable here with Glassway with the right builds and the right setup. So guys, good luck this week. Get that God Roll DFA, and if you have any other suggestions on what you like to use in this Nightfall, feel free to comment them down below. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.